What if Christmas, which has always been a time for celebration, became a turning point in your life? Imagine that, instead of a peaceful retreat, you arrive at a secluded village, only to discover that the country house you rented is already occupied by a woman and her daughter. She's lost everything and is trying to rebuild. He's escaping the weight of a painful past. Two worlds collide in a perfect setting for the rebirth of love. Amid laughter, tears, and an unexpected sense of belonging, they will discover that Christmas is not just about presents or parties. It's about starting over, opening up to love, and believing again in the magic of life. Want to know how this Christmas miracle happens? Don't miss a minute of this emotional story of overcoming and passion under the snow. Stay until the end and find out what fate has in store for them. Jack Turner parked his car in front of the rustic snow-covered country house. The cold wind cut across his face, but he didn't mind. He was here to escape the relentless demands of his life in New York City, where work and loneliness had become his constant companions. Christmas had always been a difficult time for him, but this year, he needed a break. A little silence and solitude. The village of Lake Placid, New York, seemed like it had come out of a fairy tale. The narrow streets were covered with a fresh layer of snow, and the Christmas lights twinkled on the houses, reflecting off the icy surfaces. He took a deep breath and walked toward the door of the house he had rented, feeling a little uneasy about being in such a peaceful place. When he opened the door, he found an unexpected scene. A woman and a child were inside, looking just as surprised as he was. "Sorry, I think there's been a mistake," Jack said, looking from one to the other. "I rented this house." The woman, Megan Parker, stood up from the chair she was sitting in with her daughter Sophia. Her face was tired, and her red eyes suggested sleepless nights. I rented this house too," she said, her tone hesitant, as if unsure whether to laugh or cry. "I didn't know anyone else would be here." Jack looked at her, frustrated. "I called to confirm the reservation. This can't be happening." They stood there for a moment in awkward silence, until Sophia ran up to Jack, her energy contrasting with the tension in the air. "Hi. I'm Sophia. Are you the man who's going to share the house with us?" She smiled, and Jack was surprised by how easily the little girl seemed to adapt to the situation. Megan bent down to speak with her daughter. "Sophia, sweetheart, it's not quite like that," she said, offering a forced smile. Then she turned to Jack. "I think, due to a mistake in the reservation system, the house was rented twice. Maybe we can share the space." Jack looked at Megan, noticing the exhaustion on her face. What else could he do? He wasn't in the right state of mind to look for another house. The snowstorm outside wasn't helping either. "All right, I guess we can share," he said, more to avoid any argument than out of genuine agreement. "But don't expect me to become part of the family this Christmas." Megan nodded, grateful, but her eyes showed that the invitation to share the space wasn't just for practical reasons, but also out of a desire not to be alone. "Of course. We'll do our best to make you feel comfortable." The country house was small but cozy, with a crackling fireplace in the living room and windows offering a stunning view of the snow-covered mountains. The atmosphere was enchanting, but the mood inside the house was far from welcoming. Jack sat in one of the armchairs in the living room, trying not to make too much noise. Megan was busy preparing things for dinner, while Sophia played with some toys in the corner. Jack felt the need to be alone, but he knew that the situation required some form of coexistence. He didn't want to be rude, but he also didn't know how to act. "Are you hungry?" Megan asked, turning to him as she chopped the vegetables. "I can prepare something simple if you don't mind." Jack looked at her, feeling the tension in the air. "No, thank you. I'm not hungry," he replied, his voice a little harsher than he intended. I'd rather stay quiet, if you don't mind. Megan didn't seem offended. She simply nodded and continued her work in the kitchen. But Jack noticed how she seemed to be doing everything with an impressive calmness despite the situation. He didn't know what had brought her there, but something in her posture made him wonder if she was really as calm as she appeared. You know, I know this is strange. It wasn't the plan for me either, she said, without stopping her vegetable chopping. But I'm trying to do the best for my daughter. And for myself. Jack remained silent for a moment, reflecting on her words. He was there to escape, but she was there to start over. Megan was struggling, and he knew it. Sophia appeared in the kitchen doorway, holding a snowman made of paper. Mom, can you help me make more snowmen? And you too, Mr. Jack. Sophia's spontaneous smile made Jack feel uncomfortable but also touched. He didn't have children, but he had always imagined that being a parent would be something simpler, more natural. He looked at Megan, who was watching her daughter with affection. Jack didn't answer immediately, but upon seeing little Sophia looking at him with such enthusiasm, he felt involuntarily drawn to the idea of helping. Okay, let's do it, he said, trying to give a smile that didn't sound forced. I'm good at making snowmen. Megan looked at him, a small smile forming on her lips. That's what I like to hear. The snowstorm began to fall more heavily, blocking the roads and making it impossible to leave Lake Placid. The snowflakes were large and dense, and the wind blew fiercely against the windows of the house. Jack looked out the window, thinking it might be another night of solitude, but the situation didn't seem that simple. He was stuck there, forced to share space with Megan and Sophia. For a moment, the silence that filled the house seemed suffocating. Megan was busy preparing dinner, while Sophia, with her infectious energy, seemed to want to play all the time. Do you like snowmen, Mr. Jack? Sophia asked, looking at him with a curious expression as she ran around the room. Jack smiled, surprised by the girl's persistence. I like them, but I'm not very good. Why don't you teach me how to make one? Sophia jumped excitedly, her smile lighting up the room. I'm really good at this. I'll teach you. Megan, who was in the kitchen, looked at Jack with a soft smile, as if recognizing how her daughter was trying to lighten the mood. She has this talent for cheering people up, Megan commented, her voice calm and welcoming. It's a reflection of how she sees the world. Always with ease. Jack watched Megan, paying attention to her gestures as she set the table. Something about the way she took care of Sophia, as if she were her absolute priority, touched something deep within him. He, who had never considered the idea of family, felt an emotion he didn't know how to deal with. He hesitated for a moment before speaking. You seem really good at taking care of her. Megan turned to him, her expression soft. I try. It's not easy. I've lost a lot. She let out a deep sigh but didn't seem willing to say more. Instead, she focused on the task at hand. Jack knew this was her way of dealing with pain, keeping her focus on practical things. Something he also did, but in a colder, more distant way. I also try to do my best, Jack said, his voice quieter now, almost like a confession. Work always occupies me, and Christmas. Well, it's never been good for me. It always feels like the world is asking more of me than I can give. Megan looked at him, surprised that he had opened up. She hadn't expected him to be so vulnerable. I understand, she replied calmly. But sometimes, it's necessary to stop and look at what really matters. Sophia, laughing, interrupted the tense moment. Now let's make the snowman. I've already made mine, now it's your turn. Jack couldn't help but smile as he saw Sophia's excitement. Next to her he really felt lighter, as if he were back in childhood, away from all the responsibilities and pains of the adult world. He picked up the improvised snowball and began shaping it, allowing himself a moment of genuine relaxation. Megan watched the scene with a discreet smile, but with a touch of melancholy. She knew Jack didn't want to admit it, but he was starting to let go of the barriers he had built over the years. Maybe, just maybe, this Christmas could be different. The night was advancing, and the snowstorm showed no signs of stopping. The house was quiet, with only the sound of the crackling fireplace breaking the silence. Sophia, tired from all the playing, had gone to bed early, leaving Jack and Megan alone for the first time since they had met. Jack was sitting in the armchair, a glass of wine in his hands, watching the flames dance in the fireplace. Megan was in the chair next to him, wrapped in a blanket, trying to relax after the long day. "I didn't expect this to happen," Jack began, breaking the silence. "When I decided to come to Lake Placid, I thought it would just be me and my loneliness, you know. And now I'm here, in the middle of all this." Megan smiled gently. "Life is full of surprises, isn't it?" Jack nodded, his gaze distant. "I came here because work was suffocating me. Christmas always seemed like a sad time. My ex-girlfriend and I broke up just before this season. And the feeling of being alone, in a place so full of expectations. It's not easy." Megan looked at him with empathy, her voice soft. "I know what it's like to feel like everything is falling apart. I lost my husband recently. Kyle and I were close since high school. He was my best friend, and suddenly he was gone. And after a while, I don't know if it's the pain or the loneliness that hurts more." Jack felt a pang in his chest as he heard the pain in Megan's voice. He knew what it was like to lose something important, but he had no idea the depth of her pain. "I didn't know that," Jack said, his voice softer now. "It seems like you've been strong for so long." Megan gave a slight smile, but her eyes were sad. "Life doesn't give us many choices, Jack. We just have to move on. But sometimes, the pain is stronger than the will to go on." For a moment, silence hung between them. Jack realized that Megan wasn't just rebuilding herself, she was surviving. He began to see her differently, not as a stranger sharing the house, but as someone who, like him, was fighting against the ghosts of the past. The days passed slowly, and the snow kept falling incessantly over Lake Placid. Although Jack had gotten used to Megan and Sophia's company, he still felt uncomfortable with the festive atmosphere surrounding the house. He couldn't connect with the Christmas spirit. For him, this time of year had always been just a reminder of everything he had lost. But that day, when the sun finally appeared between the clouds, Sophia entered the room, all excited. "It's time to decorate the house, Mr. Jack." She was holding a box with Christmas ornaments, a big smile on her face. "Let's make everything beautiful and colorful. It's going to be fun." Jack looked at her, bewildered. "I don't know if I'm the type of person who loves decorating Christmas trees." Megan appeared behind Sophia, with a calm smile. "It's going to be fun. And if you want, you can just help with a little part." Jack knew there wasn't much way to escape. He always thought that if he opposed the idea, it would just create more discomfort between them. "All right," he said somewhat reluctantly. "But don't expect me to become an expert in ornaments." Sophia jumped with joy and handed Jack a golden star. "You put it on top of the tree." She was so excited that Jack couldn't help but laugh. As they began decorating the tree together, Jack started to notice something. He saw the care with which Megan arranged the ornaments, the way she paid attention to every detail. The sparkle in Sophia's eyes as she hung the colorful baubles was contagious. For them, Christmas wasn't just about presents or parties. It was about finding joy in the small things, in the simple moments. As time passed and the tree began to take shape, Jack found himself laughing, something he hadn't done in a long time. He was surprised to realize that he was actually having fun. He helped hang the lights, placed the Christmas baubles, and even dared to put the star on top of the tree. When he finally stepped back to admire the work, he saw the room transformed. The atmosphere was warmer, happier. Megan and Sophia were smiling, satisfied with the result. "I didn't know you had so much talent, Mr. Jack," Sophia exclaimed. Jack smiled back. "I guess you're right. Christmas decorating can be more interesting than I thought." Megan looked at him, her smile gentle and sincere. "I knew you could do it. Christmas has this power to make us connect with the magic of life, even when we don't expect it." Jack felt touched by her words. He didn't fully believe in the power of Christmas, but the atmosphere Megan and Sophia had created in the house was starting to make sense. Maybe, just maybe, he was beginning to understand what Megan meant. The next day, the snow kept falling, creating an even more magical scene around the house. The sky was covered with clouds, and the world seemed to be in a deep silence, broken only by the sounds of the wind and the snow. Sophia was excited, running around the house and asking Jack and Megan to go outside and play. "Let's make a snowman," Sophia exclaimed, jumping with excitement. "I love making snowmen. It's going to be fun, I promise." Jack hesitated, looking out the window at the white landscape outside. The cold bothered him, and he still wasn't completely comfortable with the idea of playing in the snow. But Sophia's hopeful look made him give in. "All right, let's go. But you're going to have to teach me how to make the snowman properly, okay?" Sophia smiled widely and ran to the door, already excited to start. Megan looked at Jack with a smile. "You'll see, it'll be more fun than you think." As they stepped outside, Jack felt the cold air and the snow falling on his head. But as they began to shape the snowman, something inside him changed. He started to relax, laughing at the awkward attempts to build the snowman when Sophia made the snowball too big, almost knocking them all over in the process. The fun and laughter filled the atmosphere. Jack realized he was genuinely smiling, for the first time since he arrived there. He was allowing himself to experience something he had forgotten: joy. Megan was by his side, also smiling, as she watched the interaction between the two. She noticed the change in Jack. He was opening up, little by little, and it touched her in a way she couldn't explain. Although there was still a distance between them, she felt like they were starting to build something meaningful. When the snowman finally took shape, with a borrowed hat and an improvised smile made of stones, the three of them stepped back to admire their work. "I never thought I'd have so much fun building a snowman," Jack said, still with a smile on his face. Megan looked at him with a soft expression. "I knew you could do it. Sometimes, we just need to allow ourselves, don't we?" Jack looked at her, and for the first time, he saw something beyond the woman who was sharing the house with him. He saw a woman who had a quiet strength, who made Christmas shine again, not just with lights and ornaments, but with her own ability to find beauty in the simple moments. The night was calm. The wind had died down, and the snow gently fell over the village. Inside the house, the fireplace illuminated the room, casting dancing shadows on the walls. Megan was sitting in front of the fireplace, a glass of wine in her hands, while Sophia had already gone to bed. Jack, who had become used to the silence filling the house, walked over and sat in the chair next to Megan, offering a slight smile. "I know you said you don't like talking about it, but have you ever told me about your husband, Kyle?" Megan looked at him surprised, but something in Jack's eyes made her understand that he really wanted to know. She looked at the fireplace, where the flames were dancing gently, and sighed. "Kyle was everything to me. He was my best friend. The kind of person you know is by your side, no matter what." When he was gone, I didn't know how to go on. Jack leaned forward, touched by the sadness in Megan's voice. He had never imagined the weight she carried, so young, trying to be a mother and rebuild her life after such a devastating loss. "And how did you deal with that?" Jack asked softly. Megan hesitated, looking at the wine in her glass, as if searching for an answer there. At first, it was impossible. I didn't know how to tell Sophia. How to explain to a 7-year-old that her father would never come back. But somehow I found the strength to go on. I couldn't stay paralyzed by the pain. I had a daughter to take care of. She gave a sad smile, her eyes moist. But sometimes I feel insecure. As a mother, as a woman. I wonder if I'm enough for Sophia. If I'm doing the best I can. Jack felt a deep pain hearing her words. He knew that although he had never experienced the loss of someone so close, the feeling of insecurity of not being enough was something he could relate to. He had never allowed himself to be vulnerable with others, but something about Megan's pain touched his own unhealed wounds. "Megan, you're not alone in this," Jack said, almost without thinking. "I know I don't have kids, but for some reason I feel close to everything you're going through. The feeling that we're all trying to find our way, even after a loss." Megan looked at him, surprised by the sincerity in his words. She never imagined that Jack would open up like this, especially after everything he had been through. She realized that despite the walls he had built over time, there was a vulnerable side there, hidden beneath the facade of toughness. "I never thought you'd be so empathetic, Jack," she said, smiling slightly. "I thought you were someone who just closed himself off from the world. But you're right. We all have our losses and fears." Jack nodded, feeling a stronger connection with Megan than he had ever imagined. He was beginning to understand that, despite the pain and the loneliness they both carried, there was a chance for healing. Maybe Christmas, indeed, was a time for new beginnings, not just for them, but for what they could build together. Christmas Eve had arrived, and the house was more enchanting than ever. Sophia was excited about the prospect of opening presents the next morning, while Megan and Jack prepared the last meal before gathering around the lit Christmas tree. The atmosphere in the house was warmer and more inviting than it had ever been, but at the same time, there was a tension in the air. Jack knew something was changing between him and Megan. The attraction he felt for her was becoming harder and harder to ignore, but he refused to give in to it completely. He didn't want to get hurt again. "Jack, can we talk for a moment?" Megan asked as she sat down next to him in the living room, the soft light from the tree illuminating her face. Jack looked at her, his heart beating faster than he would like to admit. "Sure. What do you want to talk about?" I know we've been getting closer, and it's making me question a few things." Megan hesitated, as if searching for the right words. "I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know if I should give in to this connection we're creating." Jack sighed, his eyes fixed on the fire in the fireplace. "I'm scared too, Megan. I don't know if I should open up to you. I don't know if I can trust love again." Megan looked at him with affection, understanding the struggle he was facing. "I know, Jack. I have my fears too. Love, trust. All of that has become hard to believe in for me. But maybe it's time to take a risk. For both of us." Jack looked into her eyes, the tension between them palpable. Then finally he leaned in toward her, his hands gently touching hers. "I know this can be scary, but Christmas is a time for new beginnings, isn't it?" he asked softly. Megan nodded, and without saying anything more, they moved closer, leaving their fears behind. In that moment, with the soft sound of snow falling outside and the warmth of the fireplace surrounding them, they finally surrendered to each other, letting love blossom. On Christmas morning, the house in Lake Placid was radiant, more than they could have ever imagined. Sophia was ecstatic with the presents, and Megan, although still carrying a slight melancholy, seemed to find comfort in the surroundings. The house was decorated with care, and the aroma of the Christmas roast filled the air. Jack was in the kitchen, helping prepare dinner, but his eyes were fixed on Megan, who was there beside him, smiling as she organized the final touches on the table. He had been surprised by how easily things were flowing between them, and the most impressive thing, the feeling he had for her was stronger than he ever imagined. "You made all of this seem so easy," Jack said, placing a plate on the table. "I never thought that I could feel this way again." Megan looked at him, touched by his words. "It's easy when you have the right people by your side, Jack." He smiled, his heart beating faster. "And I don't want to live in fear anymore. I don't want to hide anymore. I want to be by your side, Megan. If you want that too." Megan looked at him, surprised by the sincerity in his voice. Something had changed between them. They were both letting go, putting the barriers of the past behind. I want that too," Megan said, her voice soft but firm. "I know the road won't be easy, but you've shown me that it's worth trying. It's worth taking the risk." The atmosphere in the house was filled with an unexpected peace, a sense of renewal, not just for Jack and Megan, but for what they could build together. When Sophia entered the room with her radiant smile, they looked at each other and, without saying anything more, realized that Christmas, which had initially seemed like a time of pain and loneliness, had transformed into something more, a moment of renewal and hope. They sat at the table, and the evening passed with laughter, stories, and the warmth of a new family that was being built. The wounds of the past still existed, but in that moment, they were just memories, overshadowed by the strength of love and the promise of a future together. That night, as Christmas came to an end, Jack looked at Megan and Sophia, and he knew that, despite all the challenges life had thrown at them, they had found something more valuable: the chance to begin again, together. The true Christmas miracle. And so, after a Christmas full of surprises, love, and overcoming challenges, Jack and Megan finally found the new beginning they so desperately needed. What seemed to be a time of pain and loneliness transformed into a miracle they never expected. A love that was born under the snow, warming their hearts and showing them that, no matter how difficult the losses are, the future can always surprise with new possibilities. If this story touched you, imagine what else we have prepared for you. Don't forget to leave your like, comment on what you thought of this beautiful Christmas story, and share it with your friends so they can also be enchanted by the miracle of love. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any touching stories like this. See you in the next video, with more stories that touch the heart.